Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Carlos Irfate. It's very nice to see so many familiar faces in the audience, members, brokers, industry stakeholders, our friends. It's really, really nice to see you all. Today, it's going to be a little bit different than we've done in the past. So today, it's just going to be about the club, where we've been, where we are, where we're going. We're going to be speaking about the progress generally, and we're going to be relaying the results, the statistics, the performance indicators. But more importantly, we're going to ultimately address, I think, what's on the forefront of everybody's minds, the core issues, the recent need for supplementary calls, and the state of the club as we move forward. And before we get to the slides, and there's a number of key slides that we're going to be showing you in terms of our performance, I want to talk a little bit about history. As many of you know, the American Club was born in 1917, and it was created to solve the problem related to UK sanctions when many American operators were barred from insuring with UK clubs. So it was born to support the American merchant fleet, then the largest fleet in the world, and the club remained for about 72 years a mutual supporting that domestic shipping industry. And it followed after that the ebb and flow of the American maritime sector. So in this respect, it was very much directed by and for the benefit of its mutual members, following a pure not-for-profit model almost religiously, always aiming for a break-even result, setting the rates with that target, and allowing the members themselves to reap the benefits of any investment returns that were happening during those periods. The concept was simple: a commitment and a very good record of funding when needed, really utilizing the association for what it was meant to be, which was a mechanism to operate self-insurance. Furthermore, it wasn't a member of the IG. It did not follow all the practices of all the IG clubs. So one of those aspects was that it did not close the years within 3 years of inception, and kept the years open for longer periods in order to deal with lags in development, whether that was to rectify deficiencies or whether it was to return surplus. And they often did the latter. The result, of course, was a real, not-for-profit, accessible shipowners mutual. Another result, though, of that, of course, was that the American Club did not have the opportunity to build up the comparable deep reserves that its peers, today members of the international group, did prior to its entering the IG and competing within that arena. So when the American Club entered the IG as a reinsured entity member in 1989, it actually had at that time about 10 million in free reserves. And in the beginning of 1998, when it became a full pooling member, it had at that time about 18 million in free reserves. The impact of that was twofold. On the one hand, there was no cushion really to absorb major underwriting losses. And on the other hand, maybe even more importantly, there was a smaller portfolio to earn investment returns, to earn income to set off underwriting losses. So to give everybody some context, to understand what was happening at that time, based on an independent report that we obtained from Elysian Insurance Services, the average free reserves during 1998 of IG clubs was about 155 million. And if we exclude the highest and the lowest as outliers, it was 140 million. And for further historical context, the club had also commissioned a report to analyze the 10-year period following its entry into the IG, which was 1997 to 2007. And this report actually reflected that while the American club generally outperformed its peers in terms of combined loss ratio overall, the significantly smaller size made it difficult for it to build reserves at the same rate as its peers. To give you a little bit more context to this, while other clubs also resorted to unbudgeted supplementary calls during this period, and many of them actually reached in the early 90s as much as 200+% of planned calls, the combination of excess calls and the sufficient mass and asset base to generate dollar investment income return usually resulted in the unbudgeted calls more than compensating for the deficiencies and adding significant growth year on year to the free reserves. The weighted market average of the historical proportion of underwriting losses covered by investment income for that period was 113%, whereas the American clubs was 39%. In addition, the weighted market average of the contribution of investment income as a percentage of total income was 18.5%, whereas for the American club, it was 6.5%. We're all also aware that subsequently, from about 2010 to 2019, the market experienced what we would call a relatively benign claims period, and I always use the word relatively benign, following or followed by and simultaneously to a softening of rates during a period of generally depressed freight rates for the IG membership on a global scale. Not only did the rates fall by over 40% across the board, but even general increases during that period were lower than normal, probably in the 5% range from what I calculated based on the reports that we collected, compared to almost 10% average for the previous period referred to. So basically cut in half. And it's important to recall that during this period, the American club, despite its position as compared to its peers, did not make an excess call. And as a true mutual, it utilized investment income and surpluses of certain years to set off the shortfalls of other years, and still achieved overall surplus stability during that whole period. Then, of course, we know we were hit by a major influx of disruption. And we also know that in the mutual world, the rates always follow the claim cycle. It makes sense. It's a self-insurance mutual. We all know the factors that caused the shift from 2019 to date. We went very deeply into them last year. I'm not going to delve into them today, save to say that many of them will remain a permanent aspect in risk assessment, and we continue to maintain that a new risk environment has emerged during this transition period. And indeed, you will see that the slides reflect on that. So having said all that, I want to emphasize that this is all only meant to provide historical context, because we are where we are, and we're here now to talk about what we've been doing, what we are doing, and where we're going. So let's move to the slides. So here you're going to see the last 3 years entered tonnage by vessel type. This shows how we've been moving in terms of the risk profile of category of vessel. You'll see that there's been a shift in vessel type concentration. Whereas in 2021, we were more heavily weighted in bulk carriers. As of 2023, the blue section, the majority of tonnage is now weighted in tankers at 43%. Of course, this is within the context of increasing tonnage, and it's not something that we're going to speak about in a little bit. The shift is not by chance. It's a result of continuous risk assessment for underwriting profile modifications. So, as a result of this, though, we have improved our renewing fleet underwriting loss ratio. After the 2022 renewal, it was 63%. After the 2023 renewal, it's now 53%. And this is a strong indicator of performance going forward. In addition to the targeted vessel type shift, in 2022 and 2023, we non-renewed a number of poor-performing accounts, and we also applied corrective measures to other accounts. We enhanced our due diligence processes, as well as within the context of pre- and post-entry review, and we have also integrated, individualized accounts approach as well. So we need to keep in mind that the majority of our membership is small to medium-sized privately held operators, many of which have family heritage in shipping. And this is key to our model. And we pride ourselves on being partners with our members, not only within the context of managing their claims, but also in identifying loss prevention and proactive measures that can improve performance across the board and individually. We do management audits and we do enhanced survey requirements, and these measures have supported our members in their approach to risk management. In addition, as many of you have experienced, our loss prevention department constantly investigates and engages with the membership, but also with other industry bodies, so that we can provide guidance on regulatory and training matters. All of these measures are built to support the membership in a tumultuous world of change on every level of shipping, and ultimately, of course, to mitigate the exposure for the association as we all navigate through a cycle of disruption. Okay, this is a very telling slide. So this is the development not only of claims, but the retained claims, the pool contribution, as well as the reinsurance cost, because that has to be taken into account when we're talking about performance. So you'll see that the blue line, the blue bar, reflects the position of where we were in the end of October of 2022, and the red bar reflects the position that we were at the end of October 2023, so just last month. You'll see that much like last year's presentation, the net exposure overall during the recent years has remained at similar levels. This chart includes, as I said, all the claims on the mutual, all the contributions to pool, and the reinsurance costs to give the full picture. You will note the comparison of where we stand in 23 versus 22, reflecting deterioration for the years of 17 to 22. But I'm going to talk about the individual years. So 2020, this year, the pandemic year, developed negatively both at the retained level as well as the pool, and as indicated last year, the release call margin was adjusted to reflect the continuing need to address this, and now has been finalized and closed with the final levy. In 2021, last year we provided a very detailed analysis with respect to 2021, and I believe all clubs, and indeed many brokers and industry stakeholders, have delved into all of the disruptive factors of 2021. It was immediately the post-pandemic policy year. It was riddled with a convergence of disruption and was the worst performing year of the club in recent history. A big part of that, though, as we explained last year, was that it suffered from the depressed premium environment that led into it. But we also explained last year that the deficiency was at such a level that it would need to be addressed in stages, and that the measures we took last year only addressed half. We also raised the release call in order to reflect that position, in order to keep an eye and to monitor as the year would go, in order to eventually close within the beginning of the first half of 2024, which is the aim that we have now. Now, 2022. You will note the deterioration in 2022 shows significantly. Now, of course, part of that, obviously, is because in October of last year, we hadn't completed the year. So part of that is the rest of the year development. However, you'll see that the position today is still reflecting the same trend that we've had over the last years, which shows that we are in an elevated claims environment generally. The difference with 2022 is that we had more volume in premium, and we had also taken other measures. So you will say, what happened with 2022? You raised the release call margin for 2022. So I'm going to speak to you a little bit about what happened in 2022. We had our first pool claim in 2022, the first pool claim since 2016, in the last quarter of that year. And then we had a second claim just under the pool threshold, as well as several other large claims in excess of the attritional layer. This was exacerbated on the attritional layer by a persistent elevation and value of claims in general, and in particular, people claims and cargo claims, the latter also affected by the trade disruption of sanctions and post-pandemic factors. And actually, speaking about some of these factors that we spoke about last year, including in particular social inflation, which we raised awareness for more than a year and a half ago, it's actually been recognized as a matter of serious concern across all insurance industries. However, we at the American Club have actually been taking real action to address the phenomenon, leading an industry initiative to influence policy and legislation in the United States. Smaller yet significant casualties continued to persist, mainly affected by global seafarer competency and shortage crisis, as the majority of claims, as we know, are caused by human error. A high priority issue on the agenda for our loss prevention department. Now, most significantly, 2022 was also marked by the worst investment performance since the crisis of 2008. For us, that equated to about $13 million in unrealized losses. That's equal to more than half the year's deficit. And a continuing volatile financial market in 2023 has prevented the full bounce back. It was also impacted by 2021 developments manifesting in 2022 in diversified lines of the club, both on the fixed and on the hull, and both subject, of course, to the same trends experienced on the mutual side, but at different scales and at different timing, because those types of policies are written all year round and claims are booked on a different timeline. However, what's important to note is that the initial deficiency of 2022 is half the initial deficiency of 2021. 2021, as I said, having been the worst performance in recent history, as it was impacted by the full brunt of the clash of depressed rates versus disruption, including COVID claims not covered by reinsurance. But what we believe reflected the turning point that we talked about last year. Despite the generally elevated claims environment that we are facing, the club, though, has been steadily performing better due to increases in premium, as well as the risk modification measures that we've taken. And the results and the trajectory of performance will be seen later in a slide exhibiting the first signs of the turnaround. We there? No. Oh, this is the pool claims. Okay. What was I showing before? I'm sorry. Was I on the pool claims or on the claim? Okay, now we're on the pool claims, right? Okay, sorry, thank you. Kind of similar, aren't they? So the blue bar tracks the position of the club's contribution to the pool as of October 22nd, 2022, and the red as of October 2023. You will note the deterioration for past years during the 22-23 period. So while we saw significant relief from pool claims for the 2022 policy year and so far in 2023, comparatively, though, given the extreme levels of recent years, back year deterioration for the years 16 to 21 pretty much negated the benefits of the benign 2022 year. During the 22 and 23 policy years, there has been over $12 million in further deterioration for the club's contribution to other clubs' pool claims. The deterioration of the pool as it relates to closed years naturally affects the performance of the current open years. And it naturally affects the overall financial perspective. It is apparent that the lag we experience on retained claims is following suit as well on the pool level. Investment performance. As I mentioned earlier, investment performance impaired the balance sheet for 2022. There were unrealized losses of about $13 million or negative 10%. And I must note that something went wrong with this chart because it is negative 10%, although it does reflect it. Okay, somebody fixed it. Thank you, whoever fixed that for me. Okay, so this is compared to an historical average that you'll see over time, which had us just under 5%. The current year has also proven to be volatile, making tiny movements up and down throughout the whole year, which has prevented us from fully recovering from that negative 10%. However, as you can see, and it actually, as of yesterday, the reports was even slightly higher than this, we are just under 5% now. And hopefully it will stay like that for the rest of December. And we can all do this. Okay. In addition, while allocations are always subject of discussion, with each club kind of following their own, yet generally similar models as we're all regulated, last year, all asset classes suffered negative performance, with market indexes down atrociously across the board. There was just no place to hide during 2022. Let's speak a little bit about EOM. So moving to the club's fixed P&I cover, on this slide we see the development of the tonnage by vessel type as we did with the mutual. And you can see, again, that there has been some shifting. Obviously, it's a little bit different than the mutual because smaller tonnage tends to trade differently and has different risk factors. But EOM is also not immune to disruption, which impacted 2021 and 22, both with respect to claims elevation trends as well as reinsurance adjustments that we had to make. So the management conducted an updated, detailed actuarial analysis of the insured portfolio for EOM, as well as a very detailed, usual individualized account-by-account review, and implemented modifications to the underwriting parameters and tightening terms. As with the mutual book, a number of poor-performing accounts were non-renewed, and specific developing trends were arrested. For example, one thing that we did, which was we have certain age limits for different types of categories of vessels. When vessels tend to perform well, we tend to keep them. However, we've taken a policy position that on certain types of tonnage, if they age out, regardless of the past performance, they will be subject to a review for non-renewal. In addition, the same premium increase targets set for the mutual by the board were implemented for the fixed. Keeping in mind the facility year of EOM runs from July to July, with accounts renewing all year round. As of October 2023, we see a renewed shift increasing in small tanker tonnage as well as the traditional small craft such as salvage and port tugs, categories with lower risk profiles. Now moving on to what I think everybody wants to see on this portfolio is the net loss ratio, the flow. So we see the flow of performance measured from 2011 to date. Despite the spikes, we see, as a result of the measures previously described, the initial results for 22 and 23 facility years are trending downward, and the overall cumulative loss ratio stands at 86%, providing positive contribution to the mutual, as it was always meant to do over time. The next slide is the most important slide. Now, this is the big picture, and this tells the story. On the blue line, we track the combined ratio since 2017, excluding the effect of unforecasted supplementary calls as well as any EBUB. On the red line, we track the cumulative premium growth percentage since 2017. And on the green line, we track the cumulative tonnage growth percentage since 2017. So this is how we can track the percentage flow of where we stood at that point and where we stand today. You will see that the rising combined loss ratio has been arrested and is now on a downturn. The premium growth is up by 50% since 2017, and the tonnage growth is up by 40% since 2017. And what is significant that we need to understand is that the premium growth is outpacing the tonnage growth. So while we're not going to sugarcoat the current point that we are currently at, having to levy additional unbudgeted calls for 2 years and raising the release call margin for 2022 while we track the development on all fronts, all of which, albeit necessary, we know are not welcome. This slide evidences, though, that measures taken by the club over the last 3 years are now manifesting positively and have put us on the desired trajectory, on the right side of the turnaround. The combined loss ratio is steadily dropping while premium rises ahead of tonnage. It reinforces our position that it's a constant review of the risk portfolio, combined with steady adjustment for premium alignment with the modern world of claims costs, that is ultimately key. Like I said, where we are and why is important. It's important to remember that the American Club is one of the younger members of the IG, with a history of following the pure mutual model, and less years in the international market to accumulate that cushion large enough to absorb all shocks and deficiencies directly, as well as have had the ability to produce investment returns in the performing years large enough to absorb the losses indirectly by set-off. Despite its size and volume in premium, inhibited also somewhat by this history, and despite the subsequent rate erosion period and shift in the market from 10 to 18, the club absorbed those losses during that period and did not levy any unbudgeted calls and managed to keep its position from a surplus perspective stable. The recent supplementary calls are a result of managing major disruption, converging with inflationary claims trends, but also, more importantly, a product of softened rating from the previous period. Adaptation in this environment and within a mutual to a changing risk landscape must take place over time and in stages, and that's what we've been doing. The club represents an important and significant voice in the industry and in the IG, small to medium-sized operators, the majority with traditional family heritage. We were built to serve this sector. We have and we will continue to ensure that it has a voice and that the voice is heard. Our experience reflects the experience and the growth of our membership, and despite the hard times, we have grown together and we will continue to grow together. And while we appreciate that returns to members are certainly always more welcome than the calls, even if this means that a current membership perhaps enjoys accumulated surplus of past memberships. During hard times, loyalty is highly valued, and individual performance, as many of you know, is rewarded in the long term over time. 2023, now of course almost 2024, unbelievably, and our continuous commitment. We have made it a priority, and we are committed to growth balanced to risk. The metrics that we have shown today prove that we are on the right path. We are and we will remain committed to continuous review of the club's risk profile to ensure that it remains acceptable. We have always been the club that makes great effort to understand our membership and extend the maximum level of the benefit of the doubt to our members when evaluating cover issues, within the parameters of the rules, of course. And we are committed ensuring that difficult years, while may bring disruption, will never disrupt that pro-member approach. We have always maintained an ethos of being the solutions provider. We don't look for the loophole. We look to bring the member into the rules. We don't shut them out. And we are committed to ensuring this remains the highest priority. We have always been a club driven and partnered by the broker relationships, understanding our role in facilitating solutions wherever we can within this context. And we are committed to maintaining and enhancing these relationships. We have always seen ourselves also as an extension of the operations of our members, as I mentioned to one of our members earlier today, part of a larger shipping sector family of the American Club as partners. As a small club, we have the privilege, actually, of getting to know all of our members individually across all of the offices all over the world. And we remain committed to this partnership with our members. Hand in hand with this, of course, is our commitment to our executives all over the world who are also committed to implementing these core values. And we take the opportunity to thank them all, many of them who are here today, and are eager to spend time with all of you after this is over. Τέλος, θα πω λίγα πράγματα στα ελληνικά. Τέλος, έχουμε αναλάβει δέσμευση. Δέσμευση για τη διαφάνεια. Διαφάνεια σε όλα τα επίπεδα. Στις συναλλαγές, στις επικοινωνίες, στις αναφορές, στη διαχείριση. Δέσμευση στο να κρατάμε τα αυτιά ανοιχτά. Στη συνεχή προσαρμογή στις ανάγκες των μελών. Τα αποτελέσματα σήμερα δείχνουν πως ακόμα περπατάμε σε δυσκολίες. Αλλά οι δεσμεύσεις και οι πράξεις έχουν κάνει διαφορά. We are on the right side of the turnaround. Thank you, everybody. I told you I wouldn't be that long, but just a couple of minutes longer. I want to, I know normally we have more people that speak today. We decided to keep it a little bit more to the point, but I want to point out that we have our senior executive leadership here today as well. And so we have Dan Tadros, our COO, if he can please stand up so everybody can, I know you all know him. We have Tom Hamilton, who is our Chief Underwriting Officer. We have Joanna Kukuli in the back, who runs this office right here, excellently, I might add. And we also have a number of our board members here. We have George Mikhali sitting right in the front. We have Maria Cristina Christaki, a recent board member, very excited, and a longtime member. And we also have Joe Hughes, who is now a board member. So with that, I'm going to invite everybody to go downstairs and get something to drink and eat. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, wait, no, sorry. I did forget one more thing. Can everybody from the Greek office please come up in front? Because we've had some changes here, and I want everybody to see how we've grown. Can we do that? Joanna, is everybody here? Everybody should be here. Yep. If they're not,
There are no claims today.
That's apparently. No, I did the joke in the beginning. I don't know how many of you remember. In 2005, there were 5 of us. And now look at this wonderful team. It's our largest satellite office outside of New York. Maria Cristina, Ella. Where did George, you left? Where are you? No, we're all the office. Come on. Ella, più da. We good?
Best looking office in Piraeus.
That's right.